Danny Cruz, a former boxer turned convict, swore to never forgive the woman who promised him loyalty, his wife, Emily. But when the loneliness of prison walls became unbearable for her, Emily broke that promise, finding solace in the arms of a neighbor. When Danny found out, his rage set a plan in motion. With the help of his own cousin Luis, he broke free from prison, leaving behind a trail of blood. Emily was dead. But the twisted truth didn't stop there. The real betrayal was yet to be revealed, and Danny was coming for the one who betrayed him most. Danny Cruz wasn't born into fame. He grew up in the rough streets of East Haven, a neighborhood where broken glass littered the sidewalks and sirens were more common than silence. His father left when he was 8, and his mother worked double shifts just to keep the lights on. Fighting was a way of life there, on the streets, in school, and eventually in the ring. Danny found boxing by accident. After getting into trouble for fighting at school, a youth counselor sent him to a community gym. That dingy little place became his second home. Inside the ring, he wasn't just fast. He was dangerous. He had a natural rhythm, a sharp jab, and an iron chin. People started to notice. By the time he was 20, he had a few amateur titles under his belt and a reputation as a rising star. But Danny's gift came with a curse. Outside the ring, he struggled to control the same fire. That made him great. He had a short fuse and a history of letting his temper get the better of him. That mix of glory and anger finally exploded one night in downtown Hartford. It was supposed to be a celebration. Danny had just won a regional fight, and his friends convinced him to go out for drinks. At the bar, a stranger bumped into him, spilling a drink. Words were exchanged. Danny tried to walk away, but the man shoved him. That's all it took. A single punch from Danny knocked the man out cold. His head hit the pavement. The injuries were serious. The security cameras caught everything. Danny was arrested on the spot and charged with aggravated assault. During the trial, his lawyer argued it was self-defense, but the prosecution painted him as a ticking time bomb, an athlete who couldn't separate the ring from real life. The jury believed them. Danny was sentenced to 10 years in prison. His world collapsed. The newspapers ran stories about the fighter who couldn't stop fighting. Sponsors dropped him. Fans turned their backs. But not Emily. She was there in court every day, holding his hand and whispering that they'd get through it. They'd been together since high school. Through every win, every loss, she stood by him. When the judge read the sentence, she cried, but she never let go. Danny went to prison thinking he still had something to fight for. In the beginning, Emily tried to stay strong. She clung to routine like a lifeline, waking up early, going to work, and visiting Danny every weekend. Her days felt hollow without him, but she forced herself to believe that it was temporary, that 10 years would go by and they'd pick up where they left off. She wore his hoodie to bed. She kept a photo of them on the fridge. Friends called her devoted. Some whispered she was naive, but Emily didn't care. She had made a promise, and for a while, she truly believed she could keep it. The first year was manageable. The pain was fresh, but so was the determination. She sent letters, weekly, sometimes with photos or little gifts she hoped would remind him of home. Danny responded, shorter and less often, but always with warmth. Emily decorated the house for holidays, even though no one came over. She cooked dinner for one. She kept things in order, as if Danny might walk through the door any moment. But by the second year, the silence between letters grew. Visits became strained. Danny had changed. Prison was changing him, and Emily could feel the distance growing. She never told him how lonely she was, how the nights dragged on, and the silence in the house seemed to echo louder every day. She just kept smiling during visits, pretending things were fine. But pretending took its toll. That's when Mark entered the picture. He was her neighbor, a mechanic with a quiet voice and kind eyes. At first he was just helpful, fixing a leaky sink, carrying groceries, checking in. Emily appreciated the company. She told herself it was innocent, but loneliness has a way of softening boundaries. Conversations turned into long talks on the porch. Laughter returned to her life in small, careful doses. She hadn't realized how much she missed being seen, being heard. One night, it happened. A kiss, then more. And just like that, the line she swore she'd never cross was behind her. She lived with the guilt, convincing herself it was just temporary, just comfort. She still loved Danny, she told herself. She just needed something to get through the emptiness. Mark never asked questions. He never pushed. They kept it quiet. No one suspected a thing. But secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of finding light. Inside the prison walls, time moved differently. Days blurred into each other, marked only by routine, meals, roll calls, and long, endless silences. Danny Cruz was no longer a fighter, no longer a husband in the eyes of the world. He was inmate 42791. He kept his head down, stayed out of trouble, and focused on surviving. He worked in the laundry room, lifting bags of clothes like weights, trying to keep his strength up. Letters from Emily had started to slow, but he tried not to read too much into it. Maybe she was busy. Maybe the stress was just too much. Still, he waited for every mail delivery like it was oxygen. One afternoon during lunch, an older inmate named Rico handed him something strange, a folded napkin with a drawing on it. At first glance, it looked like a child's doodle. A crooked house, a stick figure, some trees. Danny stared at it for a long time, confused. Then Rico said quietly, "From a friend on the outside." That's all. No explanation. Rico walked away. Danny unfolded the napkin again and studied it under the flickering light in his cell. This time, he noticed details. The house looked just like his back home. The trees matched the ones lining his street. The stick figures, one had long hair. The other one had something that looked like a heart drawn between them. In the corner of the napkin, scribbled faintly in pencil, were the initials M+E inside a heart. Emily, and someone with an M. Danny's heart pounded in his chest. His hands trembled. He hadn't seen Emily in over a month. Her last letter was short, almost cold. It didn't make sense. But this felt like a message. Someone was telling him something. Something he never imagined. He didn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling until morning, his mind racing. The next day he approached Rico in the yard. No words were exchanged, just a look. Rico nodded once and walked away. Danny didn't need confirmation. The message had landed. His world, already cracked from years behind bars, now began to crumble completely. Trust had been his last anchor. And now that, too, was gone. In that moment, Danny stopped being just another prisoner. A plan began to form in his mind, not of survival, but of something far more dangerous. Danny Cruz changed after the message. He no longer moved through the prison with the tired calm of a man doing his time. Something in his eyes had hardened. He stopped making small talk with the guards. He stopped lifting weights or hitting the heavy bag during rec time. Instead, he started watching, listening. He paid attention to the details most inmates ignored. Shifts in guard routines, blind spots in the yard, broken cameras no one bothered to fix. He was no longer just counting down days. He was searching for a way out. It started with a memory. Years ago, during his first month at the facility, there had been talk about a renovation project. A wing of the prison had been shut down after a failed expansion, and the work was never finished. Danny remembered overhearing maintenance workers talk about it. Tunnels, crawl spaces, storage rooms that had been sealed off and forgotten. Most people didn't care. But now, that detail meant everything. He found ways to get closer to the laundry room in the older part of the prison, offering to pick up extra shifts. No one questioned it. He kept his head down and worked hard. Inmates who asked too many questions were ignored. Danny started mapping things in his head: vents, utility, closets, and wall panels that felt too thin to be solid. He tore small pieces of cloth from sheets and used them to track airflow from hidden vents. He paid a price for every move, skipping meals, risking punishment, but none of it mattered. He had a goal now, and it was bigger than freedom. He began trading favors for tools, rusty nails, broken spoons, anything sharp enough to scratch through drywall or pry open vents. He worked in silence, mostly at night, using the noise of the industrial washers to mask his movements. Every inch of progress took days, but he was patient. The tunnel he found behind a collapsed storage wall was narrow, dark, and crawling with dust. But it was real. Forgotten by time. Untouched. Danny didn't tell anyone. He trusted no one. The tunnel was just wide enough to crawl through, and it led to a service hatch behind the perimeter fence, an exit no one had used in years. He didn't know when the right moment would come, but when it did, he'd be ready. He wasn't thinking about escape anymore. He was thinking about Emily. And revenge. Storm came late on a Thursday night. Thunder rolled over the hills, and rain hammered the prison roof like a warning. Power flickered once, then again before the lights finally went dark. Backup generators kicked in, but the cameras went down for almost 5 minutes. Most inmates stayed in their bunks, annoyed or grateful for the break in routine. But for Danny Cruz, this was the moment he had waited for. He moved fast, just like in the ring, deliberate, controlled, focused. The fake panel behind the washing machines came loose with one solid pull. He slipped inside the tunnel, dragging a small bag he had hidden in the laundry room days before. Inside were basic supplies, a change of clothes, cash taped together from years of quiet trades, and a cheap prepaid phone. The tunnel was tight, damp, and filled with stale air. It took him nearly 40 minutes to reach the other end. He had to push aside a rusted grate and crawl through wet dirt before emerging behind the fence line. There were no guards this far back, only shadows and broken floodlights. The storm covered his footsteps. By the time anyone noticed the missing inmate, he was already miles away. Danny disappeared into the night like smoke. A stolen work van was parked where he had arranged it, thanks to a favor owed by someone with outside connections. He drove without stopping for hours, switching roads, staying off the main highways, and avoiding gas stations with cameras. By sunrise, he was out of state. When prison staff finally discovered the empty cell, they were stunned. Danny had left no signs of struggle, no notes, no trail. An internal investigation began immediately. Search dogs were brought in, helicopters deployed, roadblocks set up. But Danny Cruz was already a ghost. Authorities released his photo to the media and urged the public to stay alert. But Danny wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He had no interest in starting a new life or disappearing forever. He had only one mission. He wanted answers. He wanted justice. His own version of it. And above all, he wanted to look Emily in the eye and make her feel what he had felt for every second. He spent behind bars, thinking she was waiting for him. Emily Cruz was found dead in her home exactly 1 week after Danny's escape. A neighbor noticed her front door ajar in the early morning and called the police. Inside, everything looked oddly normal. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no ransacked drawers. Emily was lying on the kitchen floor, her body cold, her face peaceful, as if she'd simply gone to sleep and never woken up. But the bruising on her neck told a different story. It wasn't natural, it was personal. The police arrived quickly, and within minutes they realized who she was, the wife of an escaped convict, now headline news. The connection was immediate. Danny Cruz was declared the prime suspect before the medical examiner. Even removed the body. The timing was too perfect, the motive too obvious. What began as a missing inmate case was now a full-blown murder investigation. News vans lined the street by noon. Reporters dug into Emily's life, replaying old photos of the couple, their wedding, Danny's boxing career, the trial, and now, this. Every outlet ran the same narrative. A betrayed man, driven by heartbreak and fury, hunting down the woman who broke his trust. Public opinion was split. Some called him a monster. Others quietly sympathized. But beneath the headlines, questions lingered. If this was an act of blind rage, why was the scene so clean? Why had Emily let him in? Why? No struggle? Police searched for surveillance footage, But the cameras on Emily's block had all gone offline during a power outage the night before, an outage too perfectly timed. Her phone was missing, and so was her laptop. Investigators believed Danny had taken them to destroy evidence or prevent communication. Mark, the neighbor she had been seeing, was immediately questioned. He admitted to the affair, confirming what authorities already suspected. But his alibi was airtight. He had been at a friend's house 2 hours away, confirmed by multiple witnesses and phone records. It wasn't him. The focus snapped back. To Danny, an arrest warrant was issued across state lines. Police warned he might be armed and dangerous. But Danny was nowhere to be found. No sightings, no leads. Just one undeniable fact. Emily was dead. And whoever had taken her life had done it with the kind of precision and calm that suggested this wasn't just an act of passion. It was planned, calculated, and deeply personal. As the investigation deepened, police turned their attention to Emily's inner circle. Her life had been quiet, but the affair with Mark revealed cracks that no one had noticed before. Detectives sifted through her messages, financial records, and visitor logs at the prison. It was in that process that a new name surfaced: Luis Cruz, Danny's cousin. Luis had visited Emily more than once during Danny's early years in prison. At first glance, it seemed innocent. Family looking out for family. But investigators noticed a pattern. Luis had been around often. He helped with errands, fixed her car, and even mowed her lawn regularly. Neighbors had seen him at her house more times than Mark. One even recalled him leaving late at night on multiple occasions. When questioned, Luis claimed he was just trying to help while Danny was away. He spoke softly, acted humble, and gave the impression of someone caught in the middle. But something felt off. Detectives reviewed Emily's phone backups. In them, they found fragments of deleted messages from Luis, friendly at first but gradually becoming more personal. Compliments, late-night check-ins. One message read, "You deserve more than waiting around forever." Another simply said, "I'm here when you need me." While none were outright confessions of love, they hinted at deeper feelings Luis had kept hidden. Still, this didn't explain how Danny had found out about the affair with Mark. Luis denied ever mentioning it. But then, one detail unraveled everything. Inside Danny's cell, investigators found the napkin drawing that had set everything in motion. After scanning it for fingerprints, forensic teams confirmed it. Luis had handled it. The very cousin, who claimed to know nothing, had been the one to deliver the message. Why would Luis betray Emily like that? Why would he push Danny toward revenge? The answer came quietly, through context rather than confession. Luis had loved Emily from the shadows for years. Watching her fall for Mark wasn't just jealousy, it was heartbreak. He couldn't stand being second, being overlooked. By sending Danny the coded warning, he didn't just light the fuse, he built the bomb. Now, suspicion turned toward him. If Luis could manipulate Danny once, could he have done more? Helped him escape? Led him to Emily? The pieces were coming together, and the story was no longer just about a broken marriage. It was about betrayal layered on betrayal, and a man who pulled the strings from both sides. The closer investigators looked at Luis Cruz, the more the quiet, helpful cousin began to resemble something else entirely. On the surface, he had no criminal record, no history of violence, and a steady job as a warehouse supervisor. But behind that clean image was a pattern of manipulation, carefully hidden beneath good intentions. Police traced his movements in the weeks leading up to Danny's escape, and what they found turned suspicion into certainty. Security footage showed Luis purchasing camping gear from a local outdoor supply store, items that could be used for survival in remote areas. He paid in cash and used no store loyalty cards. A few days later, he bought prepaid cell phones from a gas station 2 towns over. When questioned, he claimed it was for a weekend hiking trip, but there was no evidence of that trip ever happening. In fact, his phone pinged near the prison 3 nights before Danny escaped, far outside his normal routes. Even more damning was the discovery of a set of blueprints found rolled up in Luis's garage, partially hidden behind old boxes. They weren't prison blueprints, but they did include sewer lines and maintenance tunnels for the region. Investigators believed Luis had used them to help Danny plan the escape. guiding him toward forgotten parts of the facility where surveillance was weakest. Luis didn't just betray Emily. He gave Danny the tools to disappear. But what Luis hadn't expected was how quickly things would spiral. The coded message was never meant to end in Emily's death. At least that's what he claimed. He said he only wanted to break them apart, to expose her lie, to make her available again. But love twisted into obsession, and obsession blurred into cruelty. When Danny escaped and Emily was murdered, Luis played dumb. He cried at the funeral. He helped the police. He acted the part. Yet deep down, he knew the truth. He had orchestrated everything, and Danny knew it too. Somewhere between the rage and heartbreak, Danny must have figured it out. A betrayal like that wasn't something he would ignore. Luis had thrown a match into a burning house and walked away. But fire always finds its way back. The real question now was, had Danny gone after Luis as well? And if so, where was he hiding the rest of the truth? The police were closing in on Luis, but they were still one step behind. It was clear that he had played a pivotal role in Danny's escape, and even more disturbingly, in the murder of Emily. Yet every time they thought they had him cornered, he slipped away, maintaining the illusion of innocence with chilling skill. The quiet, dependable cousin was now at the center of a deadly game he had set in motion, and the pieces were falling into place faster than anyone anticipated. Luis, however, was running out of places to hide. Though his movements remained largely concealed, there was something about his demeanor that began to change. His guilt was eating at him, a weight he couldn't keep hidden forever. He stopped answering calls from family members. His calm facade cracked when the police came to his door again, this time with a warrant to search his home. They found nothing new on the surface, no direct evidence linking him to the murder, but they did uncover something far more alarming. A stack of old letters and photographs, each one dating back to the early years of Danny's incarceration. It was clear from the notes that Luis had always kept tabs on Danny and Emily's relationship. At first it was just innocent updates on Danny's trial, then longer messages of encouragement. But soon, the letters turned into something darker. The words were laced with longing, with resentment.